The human fleet pulled back, a slow, agonizing crawl through the void. Damaged ships, like broken metal ghosts, drifted aimlessly. Some were dark, their power gone. Others, shields shattered, were little more than floating coffins. Inside, soldiers were wounded, many already lost. Captain Ryan stood on the bridge of his small battle cruiser, his hands trembling as he stared at the main view screen. The enemy fleet was growing larger, thousands of alien ships in perfect, merciless formation. They were winning. The retreat order echoed in his helmet, a constant reminder of their failure. All units fall back. No exceptions. Around him, young pilots hung their heads in silence. No one spoke, no one cried. They just watched as their greatest defeat closed in. For the first time in generations, humanity was running. On the enemy flagship, the alien commander watched the human fleet scatter. He laughed, a cold, sharp sound. "Humans always run," he said. "They only fight when they think they can win." His officers joined in the cruel laughter. "Prepare to chase them," the commander ordered. "We will finish this today." The enemy engines flared to life, a hungry glow in the darkness. The hunt had begun. Far away on Earth, millions watched the battle unfold on fractured news feeds. Families clung to each other, their faces illuminated by the grim spectacle. Children asked why the ships were leaving, questions no one could answer. In darkened rooms, old generals sat with tired eyes, the weight of their decisions pressing down. They had sent humanity's best fighters into the fray, and now they were watching them die in retreat. One general whispered to the shadows, "We failed them." Just as all hope seemed lost, space itself began to change. At the very edge of the battlefield, the stars warped. The fabric of reality twisted, and a colossal dark shape tore its way into existence. At first, no one could comprehend what they were seeing. Enemy scanners shrieked with alarms. Human sensors went blind for 3 agonizing seconds. Then the shadow fully emerged. Every ship, human and alien alike, froze in stunned silence. It wasn't a cruiser or a carrier, not even a battleship. It was larger than a city. Black armor, impossibly thick, covered its entire form. Glowing lines, like veins of pure light, pulsed across its surface. Its engines didn't just burn. They blazed like captured stars. And it was moving forward, not back, straight toward the enemy fleet. On his bridge, Captain Ryan whispered, his voice trembling, "That ship is not in any records." Across the human command network, there was only silence. Even the retreat signal had stopped. On the alien flagship, the laughter died instantly. "What is that?" An officer stammered. The sensors were screaming, showing energy levels that were off the scale, weapon systems beyond anything they had ever encountered. The alien commander rose slowly from his chair. "That ship," he said, his voice tight with disbelief, "is coming at us." One of his officers panicked. "But the humans are retreating. They can't have a weapon like this." The commander roared, his composure shattering. "Fire on it. Now!" Thousands of enemy weapons fired at once, turning the space between the fleets into a blinding sheet of light energy. The unknown ship didn't dodge. It didn't turn. It didn't even slow down. The torrent of fire slammed into its shields and vanished. Not a flicker. Not a ripple. A profound silence fell over the battlefield. The alien commander's eyes widened in horror. "That is impossible." Then the unknown ship sent a message, not just to the humans, not just to the enemy, to everyone. A single simple transmission echoed across all channels, in every language, a voice of iron and resolve. Humanity does not retreat anymore. On every human bridge, hearts stopped for a beat. Captain Ryan felt a tear trace a path down his cheek. Behind him, a young pilot whispered in awe, "Is that ours?" The massive ship continued its inexorable advance. It passed the last retreating cruiser, It passed the broken fighters and the escape pods. It crossed the line that had marked their defeat. This was no longer a retreat. It was becoming a charge. The front of the giant ship began to glow. Blue light, brighter than a nova, gathered in its weapon arrays. Energy levels climbed to critical. Aboard the enemy flagship, alarms blared. The alien commander, his voice cracking with pure terror, finally screamed, "Full defense formation!" All ships, but it was too late. The unknown human dreadnought fired. The blue light grew brighter. The massive human dreadnought didn't stop. It didn't slow down. It didn't turn away. It charged directly into the heart of the enemy fleet. Then the dreadnought fired. A single beam of blue energy shot through space, crossing millions of miles in an instant. It hit the lead enemy battleship. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the enemy ship split in half. No explosion. No warning. It simply vanished. Silence filled the void. One shot, one kill. On his bridge, Captain Ryan stared at the screen, his voice a whisper. That ship just erased a battleship. Behind him, every human soldier stood frozen. They had never witnessed power like this. Aboard the alien flagship, the command bridge erupted into chaos. "That was a full-shield battleship," one officer shouted. "It was wiped out in a single strike." Another screamed, "Our weapons can't break its shield." The alien commander's face turned pale. That ship, it was built to kill fleets. He slammed his claw on the control table. "All ships, fall back and regroup. Now." But it was too late. Enemy ships fired everything they had. Lasers, missiles, plasma cannons, dark energy weapons. Millions of shots hammered the dreadnought at once. Its shields flared bright, but they did not fall. The giant ship pushed forward like a moving mountain. Then its side cannons opened. Dozens of hidden weapons slid out from its armor. They all fired together. Space began to burn. The battlefield turned into a storm of fire as enemy ships exploded one after another. Human soldiers watched in a mix of fear and joy. For years, they had only defended. For years, they had only survived. Now, they were watching the enemy fall. A human pilot's voice crackled over the comms. "They're running." And it was true. The enemy formations were breaking. Ships collided while trying to escape. Their perfect order was gone, replaced by fear. Suddenly, Captain Ryan received a signal. Not from high command, from the unknown dreadnought. A calm voice spoke. "All human ships, turn back. This battle is not over." Ryan swallowed hard, then raised his voice. "All units, turn back. Follow the dreadnought." Across the battlefield, damaged human ships turned around. Broken fighters rejoined the fight. Wounded soldiers took control of their stations. Humanity was no longer running. But the alien commander was furious. He activated a hidden channel. "Release the Titans." His officers froze. "The Titan ships, sir." "They are forbidden. Release them." The commander roared. Deep inside enemy space, 3 massive shapes began to move. Each one was larger than any normal battleship. Their armor was covered with ancient alien symbols, and their energy readings were terrifying. Even the enemy fleet feared them. Inside the human dreadnought, alarms softly chimed. A young officer looked at her screen. "Unknown massive targets detected," she said slowly. "Power levels are off the scale." The human commander, a tall man with calm eyes, stood silently. "So, they finally show their monsters," he said. He turned to his crew. "Prepare Phase 2. The crew looked at him in shock. "Phase 2, sir?" one officer asked. "Wasn't Phase 1 already enough to break them?" The commander replied coldly. Phase 1 was only the greeting. The 3 Titan ships entered the battlefield. The fleeing enemy fleet stopped, turning back with new courage. The Titans moved forward slowly, and each step they took through space sent out waves of energy. Captain Ryan's ship shook violently. "What are those things?" a pilot asked in fear. Ryan whispered, "I don't know, but they feel like death." The alien commander smiled. "Now you will understand true power, humans." One Titan fired a warning shot. The blast destroyed 10 human fighters instantly. The battlefield grew silent. For the first time, the dreadnought stopped moving. Inside, the calm commander finally said, "Good, they brought their best." He looked at the glowing command core. "Now they will see ours." He raised his hand. "Unlock core weapons." The entire dreadnought began to change. New lights flared across its hull. Armor plates shifted and moved. A deeper engine sound filled space. Even the Titans hesitated. The dreadnought's shield color changed from blue to gold. Power readings exploded across every scanner. Captain Ryan whispered in fear and awe. That ship, it was holding back. The Titans moved into attack position as the dreadnought powered up something that had never been used before. The real battle was just about to begin. A golden light spread across the dreadnought's hull, its engines roaring with a power that seemed to bend space itself. On the other side of the void, 3 colossal Titan ships moved closer. Slow, heavy, deadly. Across the entire battlefield, a strange silence fell. Every alien ship stopped, their crews watching in awe and fear. Every human ship held its fire, pilots and captains holding their breath in anticipation. The entire conflict paused for this one moment. Then, the first Titan attacked. A massive blood-red beam of energy tore through the darkness, striking the dreadnought directly in its center. On Captain Ryan's bridge, an officer shouted, "Direct hit!" The shockwave was so powerful, it shook nearby human ships. For 2 long seconds, fire and smoke obscured everything. Then, as the smoke cleared, a collective gasp went through the human fleet. The dreadnought was still there. Its brilliant golden shield showed only a single tiny crack. A wave of cheers erupted from the human pilots, a stark contrast to the stunned silence of the alien fleet. Inside the dreadnought, the commander's voice was calm, cutting through the tension. "Target the first Titan." The weapon officer's hands flew across his console. "Target locked, sir." The commander raised his hand slowly, almost ceremoniously. "Fire core cannon." The front of the dreadnought split open, revealing a weapon of terrifying scale. A huge golden cannon slid forward, and inside it, energy began to coalesce, forming a miniature sun. The light was so intense that even friendly human ships had to divert their main screens. Then it fired. A thick, golden beam slammed into the first Titan. For a single eternal second, the Titan fought back. Its shields flared bright red. Its armor began to melt and peel away under the impossible energy. And then it exploded. Not with fire, not with sound. The Titan was simply crushed into a flash of pure white light, and then it was gone. Captain Ryan whispered in disbelief, his voice barely audible. They destroyed a Titan." His awe was drowned out by the eruption of cheers from the human fleet. Some pilots were crying openly, overwhelmed with relief and pride. On the alien flagship, the enemy commander staggered backward. That ship, it destroyed a Titan with a single shot. His officers could only stare at the empty space where their most powerful weapon had been just moments before. Pride had been replaced by raw, primal fear. The remaining 2 Titans didn't hesitate. They separated, one moving to engage the dreadnought directly, while the other turned its weapons on the much weaker human fleet. Captain Ryan's voice boomed across his bridge. "They're splitting up. One is coming for us." The human ships opened fire, a desperate attempt to protect themselves, but their weapons barely slowed the colossal warship. The Titan fired its main cannons, and hundreds of human fighters were vaporized in an instant. Ryan's own ship was hit, thrown sideways as power systems failed and lights flickered out. On the dreadnought's bridge, The commander saw the human fleet being torn apart. He didn't hesitate. "Switch target," he said, his voice firm. "Protect our people." The colossal dreadnought began to turn, its massive frame moving to intercept the second Titan. The third Titan saw the maneuver and rushed forward, trying to stop it. The second Titan unleashed everything it had. Missiles, lasers, plasma bolts. A storm of destruction crashed against the dreadnought's golden shield. This time, the shield cracked and spiderwebbed. Warning alarms blared across the command deck, and the ship shook violently. For the first time, the dreadnought was taking real damage. An explosion rocked the bridge, throwing the commander to the floor. Blood streamed from a cut on his head. An officer yelled, "Commander, we're losing shield power." The commander slowly pushed himself to his feet, wiping the blood from his face. His eyes were calm, but filled with a cold fire. "No," he said quietly. "We are reminding them who we are." He placed his hand on the command core. "Authorize Project Sunfall." The crew froze. One of them stammered, "Sir." "Sunfall was never tested in a real battle." The commander's reply was simple. "Then today is its first test." The command core glowed with a blinding white light. A new surge of energy rushed through the dreadnought, and its golden shield flared, turning white hot. Enemy scanners overloaded and exploded. The dreadnought fired again. But this time, the beam split into 3 distinct lances of light, striking the second Titan from 3 sides simultaneously. Its armor shattered. Its core failed. It tried to retreat, but it was far too slow. The Titan broke apart into a cloud of burning, drifting fragments. The human fleet was safe. Captain Ryan fell back into his chair, breathing a heavy sigh of relief. They saved us, but it wasn't over. The final Titan, seeing its fleet dying and its brothers destroyed, did not retreat. It charged full speed straight at the dreadnought. Its engines burned with the fury of a dying star. On its bridge, the alien commander screamed into the comms, "Destroy it, even if you die." The Titan was preparing a suicide core blast, an explosion powerful enough to obliterate both ships. Aboard the dreadnought, every alarm screamed at once. Titan overload detected. Collision in 40 seconds. Shields breaking. The crew stared at their commander, their faces pale. One officer whispered, "This is the end." The commander watched the screen, saw the enemy ship growing larger, saw death hurtling toward them. Then he spoke, his voice calm and steady. "No, this is the beginning." The Titan's core reached full power. The dreadnought's engines burned at maximum. 2 monsters, 2 Titans of war, rushed toward each other for one final, cataclysmic collision. Captain Ryan could only watch in horror, screaming, "They're going to crash." The entire battlefield held its breath, waiting for the end. The final Titan hurtled forward, a falling star blazing with destructive intent. Its core burned a brilliant, blinding white, its weapon systems locked onto the human dreadnought. All sense of self-preservation was gone, replaced by a singular, earning purpose: total annihilation. Inside the dreadnought, the world was a cacophony of red warning lights and blaring alarms. A cold, mechanical voice echoed through every hallway, a chilling countdown to oblivion. Collision in 30 seconds. Crew members gripped control panels, their knuckles white. Some whispered desperate prayers. Others simply closed their eyes, bracing for the inevitable. But on the bridge, the commander stood motionless, a calm anchor in a storm of chaos. He watched the approaching Titan, its form growing larger and more menacing with each passing moment. The entire ship shuddered violently, groaning under the strain as its final seconds ticked away. On his battered cruiser, Captain Ryan watched the 2 colossal giants converge. A pilot beside him whispered, his voice trembling, "They won't survive that blast." Ryan felt a tightness in his chest, a profound sense of loss. "That ship saved all of us," he said, his voice barely a whisper. And now, it will die for us. Across the human fleet, soldiers bowed their heads, mourning the imminent loss of their last, greatest hope. Meanwhile, on the enemy flagship, the alien commander observed the scene with a cold, triumphant silence. A cruel smile stretched across his features. "If that ship dies," he hissed, his voice full of venom, "human fear will return." He raised a clawed hand high. "Let the explosion cleanse this battlefield." Back on the dreadnought's bridge, an officer screamed over the alarms. "Commander!" "We can't stop the collision. We have to escape now." The commander's gaze swept over his crew. He saw their faces, young men and women, all loyal, all prepared to make the ultimate sacrifice. He spoke, his voice slow and deliberate, cutting through the panic. "Open all escape pods." The crew stared back, stunned into silence. "Sir, you're coming with us, right?" One of them asked, his voice filled with a desperate hope. The commander gave a single slow shake of his head. "No." An officer stepped forward, his expression a mixture of confusion and defiance. "Sir, why stay behind?" The commander turned his gaze to the ship's glowing command core. "Because this ship is more than a weapon. This ship is a key." The words hung in the air, not fully understood, but the crew's training and loyalty took over. They obeyed. One by one, escape pods launched, streaks of light carrying humanity's future away from the impending doom. The Titan now filled the entire view screen, a monstrous visage of fire and death. Its suicide core screamed with unimaginable power. Collision in 5 seconds. The commander placed both hands on the command core, a final intimate connection with his vessel. "Activate final protocol," he whispered, and then the impossible happened. Space fell utterly silent. The dreadnought stopped. The Titan froze in its path. Even the countdown clock went still. Time itself seemed to have locked in place. Across the battlefield, aliens and humans alike stared in bewildered terror. "What is happening?" Captain Ryan breathed. The dreadnought's command core bloomed open like a celestial flower, pouring out a stream of pure, white energy. A deep, resonant voice echoed across every ship, penetrating every hull. Time anchor activated. The Titan was suspended in space, its cataclysmic explosion frozen mid-reaction. Everything within a vast sphere of space was paused. The commander nodded slowly, a look of grim satisfaction on his face. "Good," he said, and walked deeper into the core chamber. Waves of energy washed over his body. "Humanity must live," he said quietly. "My life is a small price." The dreadnought's entire hull began to glow with a brilliant white light, charging a final ultimate weapon, one that would cost everything. The alien commander screamed in rage and fear. "Destroy it! Destroy it now!" But his commands were useless. No ship could move. No weapon could fire. They were all trapped within the time anchor. The dreadnought was the only actor on this frozen stage. Then it fired. A silent white wave pulsed outward. It didn't ripple through the fleets. It moved with a singular purpose, touching only the frozen Titan. There was no sound, no fire, no grand explosion. The Titan simply vanished. It was erased from time itself. Instantly, the battlefield roared back to life. Sound and motion returned. But where the Titan had been, there was only empty space. On his bridge, Captain Ryan collapsed to his knees. They saved us. The enemy fleet, gripped by a terror they had never known, shattered. They fled in every direction, their formation breaking in a desperate, panicked rout. The human fleet didn't chase. They didn't cheer. They simply watched the glowing dreadnought, its light slowly fading, its engines dying. The commander's life force was gone. The great ship sent one final message, a broadcast heard by every human survivor. Humanity no longer needs to hide. Then the giant ship went dark, drifting silently through the stars, a noble tomb for its heroic commander. Silence. Deep, cold, absolute silence. In the black void of space, the battlefield was a graveyard. Flaming pieces of what were once enemy ships drifted aimlessly. The feared Titan fleet, the galaxy's boogeyman, was gone, vanquished. All that remained was the colossal, dark silhouette of the human dreadnought, a silent giant floating lifelessly among the stars. On the bridge of his own battered ship, Captain Ryan stared at the screen. The dreadnought was a monument to a battle won at an impossible cost. "All ships," he commanded, his voice barely a whisper. "Advance slowly, cautiously." The remnants of the human fleet, a collection of scarred cruisers and weary fighters, crept forward. They moved with a mixture of reverence and fear. Was that silent giant a tomb, or a new kind of weapon? A small boarding craft slipped through a gaping wound in the dreadnought's hull. Inside, emergency lights flickered erratically, casting long, dancing shadows. Smoke hung heavy in the recycled air, and the halls were lined with the still forms of heroes who had made the ultimate sacrifice. Captain Ryan led the way, his boots echoing in the ghostly quiet. He pushed forward, deeper into the ship's heart, until he reached the core chamber. And there he stopped cold. The command core was shattered, a spiderweb of cracks across its crystalline surface. But deep within, something impossible was happening. A soft, white light pulsed, slowly, rhythmically, like a wounded, but still beating, heart. An officer next to him whispered, "Sir ... the ship is in bed." Ryan moved as if in a trance. He reached out and placed his hand on the fractured core. Light exploded in his mind, not light, but visions. He saw Earth, but an ancient Earth, long before humanity ever dreamed of the stars. He saw a ruined world and a dying race of beings made not of flesh, but of pure light and energy. They were ancient, preceding every known civilization. Their leader's voice echoed in his thoughts, filled with sorrow. "We failed. They are coming. We must hide our last light inside new life." The vision shifted. Ryan saw primitive humans, huddled around fires, wielding stone tools. He watched as the beings of light poured their essence, their final hope, into human DNA, not as a weapon, but as a seed, a sleeping potential. The reason for humanity's long struggle became clear. He saw their history flash before his eyes, the wars, the losses, the constant climb. They were kept weak intentionally. Their growth was slow-walked, so their immense hidden power wouldn't bloom too soon and shatter the galaxy. This dreadnought, it was never just a ship. It was the key. Then he saw the dreadnought's commander. Not dead, but alive, younger, standing with Earth's top scientists before the war began. "This ship is not our ultimate weapon," the commander said. "It is a doorway. When all hope seems lost, it will open the gate and awaken what sleeps within us." The vision shattered. Ryan stumbled back, gasping for air, his heart hammering against his ribs. He understood. The commander's sacrifice wasn't to win a single battle. It was to send a message. A signal. Just then, the cracked core pulsed again, but this was different. This pulse didn't reach out to ships. It reached into the very blood of every human across the galaxy. On distant planets and lonely starships, human soldiers felt a change. Fear receded, pain lessened. A new, deeper strength surged within them. Humanity had just evolved. Far across the cosmos, alien sensors blared with alerts. The energy signatures of the human race were spiking, changing, rewriting themselves. On worlds that had watched humanity for centuries, old scientists whispered in terror. The ancient power, it's awake. In a secret chamber, the Galactic Council convened. Leaders of dozens of races stared at the images on their screens. The silent dreadnought, the debris of the Titans, the fleeing enemy fleet. "Impossible!" one delegate shouted. The humans were weak. Another, a wise old being, murmured, "They were never weak. They were merely sleeping." The debate raged for hours. Some pleaded for peace, others for preemptive war. Finally, the highest council leader silenced them all. Humans now wield the power of the ancients. If we wait, they will be gods among us. A dark vote was cast. The decision was made. A new war was coming. A war not against humanity's ships, but against the very potential they now held. The age of sleeping giants was over. A new age was about to begin. Across the unfathomable darkness of deep space, a secret order was given, and the galaxy began to stir. Alien fleets, vast and menacing, started their silent advance. Thousands of ships became tens of thousands, then hundreds of thousands. The great invasion of humanity was no longer a threat. It was a reality. On a distant, quiet human colony, the piercing shriek of long-range scanners shattered the peace. A young officer, his face pale, stared at the display. "Sir, we have unknown fleets detected." The commander strode over, his expression grim. "How many ships?" The officer's voice was barely a whisper. "Too many to count." It was as if the very stars were moving against them. The news spread like a shockwave. Across all of human space, alarms blared to life. In sprawling cities, millions of eyes turned upward. Families scrambled for shelters, soldiers sprinted to their battle stations. News channels repeated the same horrifying message. Alien invasion confirmed. The collective memory of past retreats, of devastating losses and gnawing fear, resurfaced. A cold certainty settled in the hearts of many. This time, humanity would fall. Back on Earth, in the heart of high command, the generals sat in a heavy, suffocating silence. Invasion maps glowed before them, displaying overwhelming numbers, a tide of red sweeping towards human territory. It was a forecast of death on an unimaginable scale. An old general, his voice raspy with despair, whispered, "We are not ready." "Not for this." Another replied, his tone flat, "We were never ready before, either." But as human fleets, outnumbered and outgunned, gathered for a desperate defense, something unexpected began to happen. Soldiers on the front lines felt a subtle shift. Their minds were clearer, their resolve stronger. A strange calmness settled over them, pushing back the familiar tendrils of fear. Wounds seemed to heal with unnatural speed, and pain became a distant echo. On the bridge of his rebuilt cruiser, Captain Ryan clenched his fist, feeling a surge of unfamiliar power pulse through his arm. "What is happening to us?" he breathed. Far away, adrift in the void, the ancient silent dreadnought gave one last gift. Its cracked core pulsed with a final brilliant light, sending a signal that rippled through every human system. It wasn't a message of words or data. It was pure, unadulterated instinct. In engine rooms, engineers suddenly envisioned radical new designs. In cockpits, pilots found their reflexes sharpened, their movements preternaturally fast. On command decks, commanders saw the battlefield with a new, profound clarity. The ancient power was not just helping them, it was teaching them. The enemy arrived. The first alien armada blotted out the sky over a mining world, a swarm of darkness eclipsing the stars. The human defense fleet, a tiny shield against a tidal wave, moved to intercept. The alien commander broadcast a simple message: "Surrender your worlds, and you may live." The human response was just as simple, broadcast by the fleet commander: "We already tried running." The battle ignited in a storm of light and fire. Alien weapons rained down, and human shields buckled and failed. Ships vanished in blinding flashes of energy. The old fear, the one that had haunted them for generations, tried to claw its way back. But then, a single human pilot did something impossible. His fighter danced through a barrage of plasma, dodging 10 shots in a second, a feat that defied physics. He then single-handedly destroyed 3 enemy destroyers. Inspired, Other human pilots followed, their own latent abilities awakening. Something fundamental inside them had been unlocked. On the alien flagship, the commander stared at his tactical display in disbelief. These movements, these attack patterns, their reaction times. It's not possible. His officers exchanged fearful glances. The humans, they are changing. Far from the conflict, the Galactic Council watched the live feeds in stunned horror. They had expected a swift, brutal extermination of the human race. Instead, they were witnessing its evolution in real time. They are growing stronger as they fight. One council leader shouted. Another, pale and trembling, whispered, "It has begun." Just as the ancient warnings foretold, panic began to splinter the invasion force. Some of the conscripted alien races, seeing humanity's impossible resistance, broke from formation. Secret channels crackled to life with desperate pleas to the humans. "We do not want this war. We were forced into this. They will destroy us if we refuse to fight you." The grand alien alliance, built on fear and coercion, was starting to shatter. On Earth, human leaders faced a new, startling reality. Their enemy was fragmenting. Their own power was growing exponentially. And their fear was gone. Standing before the High Command, Captain Ryan's voice was firm, filled with a power no one had ever heard from a human before. "They attacked us together. Now they are falling apart. But we must choose who we will become. Will we seek revenge, or will we build a new future?" Humanity's first, most important choice was at hand. The main alien invasion fleet had arrived. It was a sight of pure terror, bigger than anything the galaxy had ever seen. Millions of ships, a coalition of every hostile race, converging from every direction. Their single brutal purpose, to erase humanity from existence. Near Earth, the last line of defense was drawn. Captain Ryan stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Defiance. Around him, hundreds of human vessels, the final remnants of their once proud fleet, held their ground. Behind them, Earth, the cradle of their species, the home of every man, woman, and child they had sworn to protect. A cold, commanding voice echoed across all channels, a chilling broadcast from the alien commander. "This is your final chance. Surrender Earth." Ryan closed his eyes for just a moment, a universe of emotions flashing through his mind. He then opened them, his gaze firm, and keyed his own comes. His voice was steady, a beacon of defiance against the coming storm. Humanity does not surrender. The first wave hit. Space erupted into a maelstrom of plasma and light. Alien fire blanketed the human formation like a biblical storm. Shields buckled and shattered. Hulls screamed as they were torn apart. Ships exploded, blossoming into silent, fiery flowers of death. Thousands died in minutes. The enemy's numbers were simply overwhelming. Even with their newfound resolve, humanity was starting to fall once more. On a nearby cruiser, a young ensign whispered into the chaos, his voice trembling, "We are still not enough." But then, something happened. Behind the beleaguered human fleet, space itself seemed to tear open. A single, colossal dark shape emerged from the rift. Then another, and another. One by one, like ancient titans waking from a long slumber, human dreadnoughts began to appear. Not one, not two, dozens. Each one was larger than a city, their hulls etched with the light of ancient power. Humanity was never just building one. They were building an army. From the very center of this new formation, the first dreadnought appeared again, the one that was once silent, the one that had sacrificed everything to save them before. But it was different now. Its core, once dark, now burned with a light of pure, brilliant gold. On the bridge of the Defiance, Captain Ryan's legs gave out, and he fell to his knees, his eyes wide with disbelief and awe. "It's alive." A calm, powerful voice, a voice that felt ancient and new all at once, echoed across the comms of every human ship. Humanity together. The final battle began. The dreadnoughts moved forward as one unstoppable wall of power. They fired. Beams of golden light, pure and absolute, lanced across the stars. Entire lines of alien ships simply vanished, erased from existence. The enemy fleets, once so confident, tried desperately to regroup, but chaos had taken them. Human fighters, now emboldened, cut through their formations like a hurricane. On every ship, human soldiers fought without a trace of fear. They were no longer running. They were no longer hiding. They were no longer weak. The Galactic Council, who had orchestrated this genocide, watched the battle unfold in absolute terror. Their grand war had failed. Their invasion was breaking apart against an impossible wall of human might. One of the council leaders screamed into his comms, his voice cracking with panic. "Retreat! Retreat all forces!" But it was far too late. The human dreadnoughts, their task at Earth complete, jumped into council space. Their capital world, the very heart of their power, was surrounded in moments. The highest council leader, the architect of humanity's near extinction, collapsed to his knees on the floor of his chamber. We were wrong. We were so wrong about humans. The human commanders held their fire. They had the power to erase the council forever, to repay genocide with genocide. Captain Ryan, his voice now representing all of humanity, broadcast a simple message to the defeated leaders. We were hunted. We were betrayed. We were pushed to the very edge of extinction. But we choose what comes next. The galaxy changed forever in that moment. The council surrendered unconditionally. All invasion fleets stood down. A silence fell across the galaxy, but this was a new kind of quiet. It was not the silence of fear of the old powers. It was the silence of awe and fear of humanity. The main dreadnought, its golden core still glowing, sent one final message to all life in the galaxy. A message that would be remembered for all time. Humanity was born weak. Humanity learned to survive. Humanity learned to fight. And now, humanity chooses to protect. Captain Ryan stood up and looked out at the starfield. For the first time in his entire life, he did not feel small. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell for more.